Right, so I've been kind of tormented inside on how it is that I want to record the reviews of each of the arcs or sagas in One Piece, because that's definitely something that I want to do and one of the pieces of content that I want to provide. But you see, the trouble is, I have just finished Water 7 NES Lobby and I'm now on Thriller Bark. I'm probably about halfway through that now, and Romance Dawn and the early One Piece sagas are a little bit hazy in my mind, to be honest with you. So what I did is have a quick skim through each of the key points in there, have a quick read back on some of the bits of content in there as well, and I finally come to kind of a rough idea on how it is that I would like to review the arc. Now, in essence, I think it's a little bit pointless, to be honest with you, for me to review every single arc in East Blue as a saga, primarily because they're very short. And I can probably make a whole video just covering East Blue as a saga in less than 20 minutes. So that's what I'm going to try and do now. You'll also notice that I am completely unscripted, and there's my phone going off. So you'll also notice that I am completely unscripted because I kind of just want to go off of my memory and just remembering the feelings that it gave me. Now, in terms of giving it an objective score, I probably will do at the end, and I will be doing that for all of the arcs or sagas in One Piece as I go forward. After, of course, East Blue Saga, then comes the Arabasta, I think, if I remember correctly. And lo and behold, I did remember correctly. I gave it a quick Google search, and yes, it is in fact Arabasta after this. And of course, that will get its own video, and then so on and so forth. So what I'm going to be doing is just going off the dome and trying to review as best as I can the East Blue Saga in One Piece. Now, what I won't be doing is giving you a long summary of the saga, primarily because most of you watching this have probably already seen it, and you don't need me to recall all of the events that happen in it, although I, as always, will be going over some minor touch points here and there, or major touch points I should say. So if you haven't seen it, I'd actually recommend going and watching it. It won't take you too long, and you can always go along with me on my journey as well. Now, ironically, this is probably coming at a somewhat bad time, mainly because One Piece live action season 2 is going to come out very soon, and at that point basically all of East Blue Saga is going to have been covered. So this is probably not the best time to be doing this. It's probably going to be straight after that, but you know, I kind of just do things at my own pace. So East Blue Saga starts off with the Romance Dawn arc. This of course has now gained fame in its name. Romance Dawn is just such a cool name for an arc, to be honest. And this is where we learn the kind of basic backstory into why Luffy wants to become a pirate. In essence, his mentor, or just someone that he looked up to, red-haired Shanks, was a pirate, and he wanted to go along with him, but of course he was too young at the time, and so he basically vowed that one day he would be a legendary pirate who could stand up to Shanks. And we also learned that he ate devil fruit, specifically the Gum Gum fruit, which is where he gets all of his rubber powers from. Shortly after this, he sets sail from his hometown and he meets Roronoa Zoro, who is the green-haired guy and wields 3 swords, and they defeat Alvida. And he basically recruits Zoro to join him and his crew, which consists of him and Zoro. Shortly after this, he defeats a world government marine captain by the name of Captain Morgan, and we also meet, of course, Kobe, who will, I believe, become somewhat of a major character later on. We see him pop up here and there as the story goes on. I will say, one thing that One Piece is very good at is just, there is no character in there who is pointless. Every character that you see, you get this feeling that, oh yeah, I'm going to see them again soon. Oh yeah, they're going to be important. And there are tons of these types of characters in just the very, very early stages of One Piece. And that's just one of the best things about the East Blue Saga, I suppose, is that it sets the stage very, very well. We get the core of the crew, and we get the kind of supporting characters, and some of the supporting characters, and they just drop a couple subtle hints at what the future is going to hold. And you can really tell that Oda had planned quite a lot of this story very early on. So next they go to Orange Town, where they fight Buggy the Clown, and they're joined by Nami, of course, who is at first just kind of a thief, a pickpocket almost, very skilled in that, and also a navigator, and she's going to become the crew's navigator, as we later find out. After that, they go to Syrup Village, and that's where they meet Usopp, the crew's sniper, and they defeat a villain who, I be completely honest, I've forgotten the name of. Kuro, Captain Kuro. and they join the crew, and more importantly than any of the villain side of things, because he's kind of irrelevant, I would say, but more importantly, this is where they get the ship, the Going Merry. So then it's going to be their pirate ship going forward for most of the show up until about Enies Lobby. From there, they sail on to Baratia, where they meet Sanji, of course, and Don Krieg, and of course you get more cameo appearances by the likes of Mihawk, who we learn is one of the legendary swordsmen. Or not legendary swordsmen, I'm mixing up my Naruto and my One Piece. But later on, you eventually learn that he is one of the 7 warlords of the sea, basically. And he's extremely strong and probably the best swordsman in the world at the time, and Zoro vows that one day he will be as strong as him. And this is where Zoro receives his massive scars from going up against Mihawk and kind of failing quite miserably, of course, because Mihawk is clearly leagues above him in terms of strength. And this all kind of builds up to the final 2 arcs in the East Blue Saga, Arlong Park and Loguetown. And these are, in my opinion, the 2 kind of tie-up arcs where Oda is very clearly saying, okay, everything that you've just kind of gone through so far, it's been kind of Monster of the Week-ish, but it's all been built up to these 2 arcs. If you don't like these 2 arcs, chances are you're not going to like One Piece. If you do like these 2 arcs, chances are you're going to love One Piece, because the next arcs are like hyper pumped up versions of these. And so yeah, Arlong Park, we get Nami's backstory, and we kind of learn that she has been forced to work for a fishman, a new species that we learn about, I believe we learn about later on, and you'll see fishmen appear here and there throughout One Piece. But his name is Arlong, and Luffy basically says he's going to defeat Arlong and free the village from Arlong's kind of grasp. And Nami officially joins the crew at this point, because it seemed like she was going to betray them for Arlong, but it was basically all to do with her backstory and just trying to get enough money to free her family. And then we go to Loguetown, and Loguetown is the place where Gold Roger, or Gold D Roger I should say, the previous pirate king that you'll see at the intro of every single One Piece episode.
You want my treasure? You can have it. I left everything I gathered together in one place. Now you just have to find it.
Episode was executed. And at this point we see another pirate marine by the name of Smoker. He is so sick, so cool. And we also learn that there are kind of different devil fruit abilities, right? And Smoker has one of them. And it looks like our good friend Luffy is going to be executed by Buggy the Clown, where eventually a man by the name of Dragon comes and saves Luffy from capture at the last second. And after this, the crew set sail for the Grand Line, basically. So that is the quickest summary I can do of the whole saga, which I know I said I wouldn't do, but I thought it was worth kind of mentioning all of those before I start reviewing the saga. Now, what you'll notice is that a lot of that was, oh, they meet this person, they meet that person, they go here and they pick up this thing. That's kind of how it is. The East Blue Saga, as good as it is, and as charming as it is, and I would recommend watching it, like I have said in the previous video, I would recommend watching it in its original animation. I wouldn't wait for the One Piece, I wouldn't watch the live action, unless you have watched the original animation, because it's so charming and it just feels so 90s, not 90s, early 2000s I should say. Or of course you could read the manga, that's its complete own thing. But it's paced like an early 2000s anime, like a weekly shonen anime, because that's what it is. And it matches that with its animation style, with its sound effects, with its voice acting style, with all of those different things, and it makes for a really, really charming watch. That being said, if you are a younger person, if you're just getting into anime, okay, here's my idea, and you'll have to bear with me. If you've never watched anime before, you could probably start with One Piece, because you won't know any better. But if you have watched any anime whatsoever, anything modern especially, you're probably not going to vibe with this just yet. I would recommend dipping into some other older titles first, so you can get a feel for what this style of anime is like before you rush in and watch One Piece, because it can be a little bit slow, to be honest with you. It is a lot of meeting this person and doing this thing. That being said, while I did just say it's slow, in all honesty, East Blue as a saga, compared to some of the other One Piece arcs, of course, that I've gotten to at least, 350 I think I'm on, it's actually pretty fast paced. I mean, the one section that I can remember dragging on a little bit would be Baratie, but it's so cool that you don't really mind it dragging on. All of the characters are sick in Baratie, by the way. You kind of meet the head chef there, and Mihawk, of course, and all of these fights are so cool, and it's like packed with just sick moments. So even though it's probably one of the slower sections, it does go by relatively quickly. Logtown, pretty fast paced, in my opinion at least, compared to something like, I don't know, Skypiea, for example. So the pacing, actually, compared to the rest of One Piece, or early One Piece at least, it's actually pretty decent. As far as the opener for a long anime goes, I can only really compare it to Naruto, because that's the only other one I've watched. Naruto's a way faster watch. It's way easier to get into Naruto. Primarily because it basically it takes about 20 episodes of just kind of getting used to stuff and just kind of learning what it takes to be a ninja, or even less than that. And then they go straight away and start fighting Zabuza, right? And that's fast. And then after Zabuza comes the tuning exams. And then after tuning exams, you get the Sasuke retrieval arc, which is like one of the best arcs in anime history, right? On the flip side, I probably wouldn't say that any of the arcs in East Blue are my favorite. I'd rank them like middle of the pack. I wouldn't say they're awful, but they're kind of middle of the pack, each of them. Romance Dawn, of course, has its own charm because it's the first part of One Piece, and it is really charming, to be honest with you. It's very cute, and just kind of watching why Luffy wants to be a pirate is very endearing, and anything with Shanks in it is really cool to me, because Shanks is like my favorite character in One Piece, so anytime I get to see him on screen, it's just sick. But is this the best showcase of what One Piece can be? Probably not in my opinion, at least. I mean, obviously, feel free to tell me yours, but that's how I feel about it, at least. So what would I rate it? It's hard to say. East Blue as a saga is very, very important, and it really does set the tone for what One Piece will be. Like I said, Arlong Park and Logtown are actually very good arcs. I'd say the earlier ones are a little bit Monster of the Week, and if you don't know what Monster of the Week is, it's basically like, oh, here is this episode's monster, and they're going to fight it, and then they kind of do it, and they kind of fight the monster and get rid of it. And you do get this feeling that most of the villains that you're meeting in East Blue are not going to be relevant later on. The only one that I will say gives you the feeling of, okay, perhaps this guy's going to keep coming back, is Buggy the Clown, and that's primarily because we see him come back. So you do get the sense that, oh yeah, no, hold on, yeah, okay, you kind of defeated him, but he'll be back, and he'll probably get stronger. And of course, later on, we learn who Buggy the Clown actually is, and who his affiliations are with, and things of that nature. And yeah, it starts to make sense. Okay, wait, hold on, Buggy the Clown's actually going to be quite important as the show progresses. Like I say, I mean, it really does set the tone, and it matches One Piece perfectly. I don't think I would want another opener. I wouldn't change anything about it necessarily. I mean, all of these characters need to get introduced at some point. But that being said, is it the best saga arc? No, definitely not. It's very nostalgic feeling, and it does give you that feeling of that's really charming. I really like old school animation, so I just enjoy the way it's animated as well. The best thing I can compare it to is like Saturday morning cartoons. If you're born from the same generation that I am, or perhaps a little bit older than myself, you'll know Saturday morning cartoons, or just morning cartoons generally. You wake up and you turn on TV with a bowl of cereal and you're just watching cartoons, and it gives you that exact same feeling watching early One Piece. I swear to you, it's like nothing else. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best thing ever. Definitely not. Where would I rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? I'd probably give it like a 7.5. I think it's really good. I think it does its job. It's not the best thing ever though. And I urge you, if you are watching One Piece, or if you are new to One Piece, it's not, don't get me wrong, it's no JoJo Part 1 or JoJo Part 2. It is very good, but you have to kind of let it sit with you. Learn from it. Watch it. Absorb it. Get through it if that's how you feel about it. Because what comes after, Arabasta arc, takes all of these concepts and dials them all up to 10. Right? The shenanigans get dialed up to 10. The comedy gets dialed up to 10. The villains become more serious. The stakes feel much higher, which is obviously a big plus. We get introduced to new characters, another big plus. And the characters that we see that are important in East Blue, of course, are important in Arabasta. So you can't really go wrong. It's the perfect setup. That's what it is. It really does feel like setup. And I suppose that's kind of where it loses the 2.5 marks for me. It's just that instead of just going into it, it really does feel like a bit of setup, and it's a lot of setup. When you really think about how many episodes it is, could it have been boiled down? Probably a little bit. And that's, kind of One Piece's always One Piece's major flaw is its pacing. But like I say, even with that, it's still a relatively fast-paced saga. So it sounds like I'm really contradicting myself, but if you really think about it, for those of you that have watched the show, you'll know exactly where I'm coming from. It's charming, and it lives in its own time, and that's kind of just how you have to see it. Whether or not you think it aged well or poorly will largely depend on how old you are, to be honest with you. If you're like, I would say like a year younger than me, maybe a push 2 years younger than me, and older, you'll probably love this. You'll think it's super charming and it will remind you of your childhood and you'll just fall in love. If you're any younger than that, you're probably going to think this is garbage and you're going to want to skip it. So yeah, sure, wait for the One Piece. Maybe you need the flashy animation, but for someone who didn't grow up with flashy animation and, you know, kind of saw flashy animation become a thing, it does just make me feel really nostalgic. And I suppose I love it for that. I just think it makes me long for a time where things were slower. I think, now that I think about it, the reason why I kind of like One Piece's pacing and the reason I don't mind that it's slow. I mention that it's slow because that's the main thing that people talk about when they discuss reasons why One Piece is perhaps not perfect, as they say it's a bit slow. But I've never really cared too much. It doesn't ever really bother me. And perhaps because it makes me nostalgic for those times where things did just go a little bit slower. You know, I grew up watching Pokemon every morning, and sometimes there'd be repeats, but every once in a while you'd get a brand new episode, and then you'd watch the brand new episode, and every week you would watch an episode, and it would take like 6 weeks for Ash to be a gym leader, right? You don't get that anymore, right? Fights have been condensed down to about half an episode, and so watching One Piece for the first time when I'm 24 just makes me go down a trip down memory lane, and it really does put a smile on my face, and especially this saga, because it just aged like fine wine. That's the best way I can put it. So yeah, thank you for listening to my ramblings on. I know it's been completely unscripted and I've just been going off the top of my head, and I don't know whether or not I'm going to keep doing this for each of my reviews. Probably not, because it's perhaps not the best way to record it, but I thought for this particular saga, where I suppose there isn't as much like intricate detail, but more so there are these major points that happen, it would be better for me to kind of just go unscripted and go off how I felt. And yeah, overall it just it gives me a nice warm fuzzy feeling and puts a smile on my face. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and hopefully you enjoyed my ramblings on. If you have done, please do like, comment. If you don't like it, hell, be honest with me, and do subscribe, because I do plan on uploading once a week or so with various reviews or just topics on One Piece and other things in general. And like I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Peace.